Hi, Dr. Dave Webster, and this is part of my ongoing video blog series about the lack of access to PET-CT in Ontario, and this one is entitled Yet Another Anxious Cancer Patient Victim of Cancer Care Ontario. So yet again, I was in oncology rounds, and there's a very clear pattern emerging, which is very disturbing to me. During the discussions about a particular patient, patient's various surgeons and other healthcare professionals very quickly became convinced that the next investigation should be a PET-CT, and indeed it should have been from the very beginning. The only ones to object to this course were the patient's cancer doctors, but then of course they are courtesy of and paid by Cancer Care Ontario. Now this particular patient had renal cell cancer, and recent MRI studies had shown that there were some new nodules, and it turns out they really weren't accessible to biopsy. Now the surgeons just kept pressing the radiologist to make a statement. Did he think these were cancer or not? Yet of course this is absolutely impossible for the radiologist with an anatomical imaging device such as CT or MR, and especially if they don't have serial studies to see if there's been any increase in size. In addition, it turns out that FDG PET is not quite as reliable for renal cell cancers as it might be for, say, a lung cancer. However, we do a non-diagnostic CT with the PET study. If the nodules had been taking up significant FDG, it would have made it absolutely clear, both to the surgeon and to the patient, that they really did need surgery because there's a very high likelihood these would be cancer. On the other hand, if the FDG wasn't positive, the study still could have been helpful in that if the CT showed that there was some enlargement of the nodules, since it would have been a few months ago for the MR, this also would have tipped the balance in favor of it being a cancer, and surgery would have proceeded. Now, that this is even being debated was because this patient has the misfortune of living in Ontario. This is a place where Cancer Care Ontario and their partners at McMaster University Health Sciences' job is to provide the answers, not just for PET, but for healthcare decisions in general, and these are the answers that the politicians expect them to deliver. So I submitted the application to something called PET Access on October the 30th and made it clear I simply will not accept a rejection, and the patient will not, and they will provide the information to the patient and his physicians unless they provide peer-reviewed science-based literature explaining why. But of course, this literature doesn't exist. The literature that they will use is the political agenda-based literature. So it's now November the 12th, and PET Access says it needs more information before it can make a decision. So, in short, the CCO has rejected the peer-reviewed science-based consensus and are going to rely on their medical experts' use of a political agenda. And in the meantime, they've deliberately made this anxious patient even more anxious. So, therefore, I say to you, Dr. Scherer and Dr. Dobrowski, are you going to continue to make this man suffer, or are you going to grant us PET-CT, which, as you know, would have been routine from the very beginning had he have lived beyond Ontario's borders where PET was available? Or on the other hand, are you just going to continue to send screen caps of my social media comment sites to the College of Physicians and Surgeons in hope that somehow this will deter me from being an advocate for the patients in this province? From the beginning, I've made it very clear that all of my communications will be made widely available to the public as well as the patient and his physicians, minus a copy, or minus the identifiers of the patient, of course. And I've now also sent copies to the Ontario Minister of Health, Miss Elliott, and Dr. Ruben Devlin, who's being paid big taxpayer dollars to oversee these so-called quality issues in our healthcare system. If you'd like to read the detailed notes that I've sent to Ms. Elliott and Dr. Devlin, they will be posted. And please remember, if we do not use social media on steroids to get this message out to the public, these are some of the people whose job it is to make sure that it doesn't. So do what you can. Here's my social media sites. We can make cat videos go viral. We need to make this go viral, otherwise we all lose, and these kind of people win. Thank you for listening.